the topic today again is how do organizations control their use of social media? And as part of this segment, we wanted to talk about identifying and mitigating vulnerabilities. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what are the main risks that most enterprises need to consider when it comes to their social media channels.
Yeah, so that's the big question here, isn't it? What are the risks? And to some extent, we don't know because we don't control anything with social media. You've signed up to a system that you have no physical control over how it's run, any changes that are made to it, the look and feel of it, and even who is on it. You don't actually even know who you're interacting with, what the processes are of the social media company. So once you're starting to interact on this, and this is your main communications channel, your big risk is that something will go wrong and you'll have a PR disaster. And this has happened many times to many organizations. This is not something that's theoretical. This is actually something that happens all the time. People have had their Twitter accounts hacked, both by people working for Twitter and for external people. You can have it done with your own people as well. I've worked in more than one company where an internal employee has hijacked the sites for their own purposes. So there's actually immense reputational risk here. There's also security risk. Because you can't control what's going on the social media site, you do get bad actors who will put dubious links into their postings onto social media. It's linked with your name, somebody clicks on the link and they're off to malware. And you are the company that will be blamed for it, bizarrely, even though you had nothing to do with it fundamentally whatsoever. It's regarded as your page, say on Facebook, not Facebook's problem. So this is why there's a big risk behind it, and it's indeterminate for most companies because they haven't actually reviewed the risk, and they probably don't have the right people looking at it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Bob, from what you shared, would you say that security is a low priority?
I think it's almost been given no priority whatsoever, Lisa. When I've done audits, and this is in my experience, but also I talk to other people in the industry, and everybody I've met has said that nobody ever reviewed the security when they implemented social media. Now, if you were to go and implement a cloud system tomorrow, you would be the first thing you would check. What are the certificates on it? How do I operate it? How do I secure my own users? The guys who generally sign up to social media are probably marketing or comms people or sometimes HR. They won't have looked at it at all. They'll like the functionality. They'll see it as a good way of communicating with people and getting something done, and it is, but they won't have looked at security at all. And I see this in how they control the accounts, the users, the passwords. They haven't done the research on the systems that they're interacting with. So I would actually say it's been given no priority whatsoever at this stage.
Wow. And so with that in mind, what I'm thinking a little bit about is when you click on and you read the terms and conditions, surely they're promising that they're going to keep the data secure, no?
They are, and I could promise you that as well, couldn't I? But whether it be true or not is another thing.
Absolutely.
So first of all, it's a very good point about the terms and conditions. So number one, I've never met anybody yet, ever, who read those terms and conditions, except for me when I turn up to do the audit. And they never have done. In my experience, it's 100% not read. But if you do go into them, they don't promise a lot. They say they will almost use best endeavors, but you don't know what those best endeavors are. So if I was looking at a normal system, I'd actually be able to go and audit it. And if I couldn't audit it, like many cloud systems, they'd actually have a good, say, SOC 2 report, which would tell you what the controls are. They might even tell you what some of the weaknesses are, what they're doing about it. And you'd get some reassurance from that. But if you go and look at, say, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, they'll have no certification for you to look at. It's not that kind of a system. They haven't actually told you truly what's going on, and there is zero chance of you finding out. So in a way, it's a bit of a black box. I don't really know what the security practices are at these companies, except for what you hear externally. They may be very good, but what we do know is that they often have breaches themselves. So they're not impeccable by any means. So whatever they promise you, it's not actually worth anything because there's nothing to go back onto them about.
Understood, understood. So as auditors, what can we do about that? I mean, would it Basically, it boils down to a cloud service, wouldn't you say? Should we be, implementing some of those controls and maybe doing those types of assessments to get a better sense of what's happening with the social media providers and within our own enterprises?
Yeah, I think that's almost the best you can do, Lisa. Just to give a little plug for ISACA, you do actually have a cloud program, which I've actually taken and adapted and used. And that's a reasonable standard to go to, is to go and use a cloud program. Now, there are strengths and weaknesses in that. One, at least it gives you a methodology. There's plenty you can go and check and see how good this is going to be and what controls then you can put in on your side of the equation. It's never going to be perfect. But as auditors, we can go and check stuff by doing a cloud program. The minute you just forget about it being social media and just think this is a cloud service, you can actually start addressing it in the correct manner. What you won't get, though, say if I, for instance, signed up to an SAP cloud service, they'd probably give me a lot more information than a social media company would. So you're still going to have some areas where you're not really sure what the controls are. And that's what the discussion has to be with your own management. Is this the risk worth taking? Do you want to sign up for all of these services, or do you want to actually have a reduced number of them and control them better?